Question number 2, the Right Honourable Chris Hipkins.
Goodness gracious, Mr. Speaker. I think you should withdraw and apologise immediately, Mr. Speaker.
I withdraw and apologise. The Right Honourable Chris Hipkins.
Mr. Speaker, to the Prime Minister, does he stand by all of his government's statements and actions?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Absolutely, because this year we are saying yes to economic growth. We have said yes to a trade deal with the UAE to boost exports and lift incomes. We've said yes to Invest New Zealand so we can attract more foreign direct investment in New Zealand into infrastructure and energy and manufacturing. We said yes to digital nomads. We actually did something about it. We said yes to more tourism and more hospitality. And most importantly today, we said yes to speed limits going up and getting Kiwis moving faster and freight moving faster. And isn't it great that a backbench MP like Mike Butteritt can get it done when a minister with an absolute majority of transport and the local MP couldn't do so.
Parliamentary. When did Nicola Willis ask the Treasury?
No, you're entitled to silence. I just want to say to the Cabinet, if you want the opposition to be quiet all through answers to questions, then I think probably outbursts like that aren't terribly helpful.
When did Nicola Willis ask the Treasury to produce a list of public assets that could be privatised, and did the Cabinet agree to that course of action?
Well, again, as I've said very clearly, asset sales are off the table for this term. What we're focused on is economic growth. Of course, we will look at the performance of our state-owned enterprises because many of them are underperforming and they need a good curry-up and they need to deliver.
Order, Mr. Speaker.
Point of order.
Mr. Speaker, I asked the Prime Minister when Nicola Willis asked the Treasury to produce the list. The Prime Minister and Nicola Willis both said to the media yesterday that they had done that. I don't think it's unreasonable to ask him to answer the question that I actually asked.
Point of order. Nicola Willis.
My statements are being misrepresented by the Leader of the Opposition. What I have said is that I have asked for a request on the purpose of the state-owned enterprises that we earn and for advice on their performance and ways of improving that performance. For the Leader of the Opposition to characterise it otherwise is false and untrue.
But the
supplementary.
The underlying point is that in an exchange like this, addressing a question is the way to go, but as the member well knows, questions in the nature of yes and no are not would be required.
A supplementary question to the Prime Minister. When did Nicola Willis ask for the list that she just referred to in her point of order, and did the Cabinet agree to that course of action?
What we're focused on is making sure we get better performance out of those state-owned enterprises. It's quite normal, as we want to make sure we've got excellence, that capital is being well deployed and that the performance of those organisations is improving. There'll be a range of us about their performance. That's all that's happened here.
Point of order, Mr. Speaker.
Point of order.
I think that's pretty straightforward. You can't answer with any argue with any assertions in the question, given I'm using Nicola Willis's own words. I simply asked him when it was asked for.
And the Prime Minister might like to expand on his answer.
I'm not aware of when it's asked for. You could ask that question to the Minister of Economic Growth if you wish.
Why should the public have confidence that he knows what's going on in his government, that when he tells them that asset sales aren't something that are being actively considered, that they believe him, when he doesn't actually know?
Asset sales are not being discussed, debated or delivered in this parliamentary term. I don't know how to be any clearer with the member of the opposition. I've said very, very clearly there will be no asset sales this term, period.
Supplementary question.
The Right Honourable Winston Peters.
Does the Prime Minister mean that there's been something learnt from the privatisation of a Labour regime that sold BNZ part sale and went bankrupt? The Quality Inns deal, totally corrupt. The Kiwi Rail deal, they went bankrupt as well. And Electricorp, which was sold, and no, sunshine. Electricorp. Excuse me. I'll explain that.
Sorry, it's just
this is not student politics, it's reality here.
Questions are asked in silence. It doesn't matter who is interrupting. If they do it again, they'll be gone.
Mr. Speaker.
No, he's going to get to ask his question with silence.
Well, point of order, Mr. Speaker.
A point of order.
That question cannot contain an assertion that is factually incorrect. The sale of railway, which Mr. Peters just referred to, happened under a government that he was a minister in.
I think you should let him finish his question entirely.
If he's rather more patient, he will remember that the Labour Party's position was on Kiwi Rail circa 1992.
Good.
So listen here, I got it. That they said they agreed with. Okay, here we go. learn anything from the part sale, never went to tender in 1987 of BNZ, which went bankrupt by 1990. The Qualities deal, which was totally corrupt. The Kiwi Rail deal, which was 1992, but the Labour Party said they agreed with the sale, but not its timing, for Electric Corp, which sold for 8 months' earnings. Have we learned nothing from that?
Table.
Point of order.
I've got to find a new job. This will get too easy.
Sorry. One of the things that might fascinate people a little bit, or possibly won't fascinate them, but it will, I think, be useful information, is that while I've got pretty good hearing, I've been worried about missing stuff in the house. So I've now got these hearing aids in, and I'm hearing far too much. But a consequence of that is I'm going to hear some things from both sides that'll probably cause a reaction from me that would be somewhat untypical. So let's just calm everything down.
Point of order. Point of order.
Point of order.
Can I just bring your attention to Speaker's Ruling 1975?
Can you start again? I was still talking when you started.
Can I bring your attention to Speaker's Rulings 1975, particularly since the member who asked or stood up earlier cares a lot about parliamentary standards, that the whole idea of supplementary questions is not to make a range of political statements about an issue, but to dig into an issue to test the minister's answers. And I seek guidance on how you would move forward with that specific Speaker's ruling.
Good as gold. I'll come back to you. The Right Honourable Chris Hipkins.
Supplementary question, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, why should New Zealanders believe him when he says that asset sales aren't something the government's considering when Nicola Willis is currently preparing the catalogue for the fire sale?
Characterisation of that question, as I've said consistently before the election, asset sales are off the table over this government. But it is quite appropriate and entirely appropriate that we have state-owned enterprise ministers, a Minister for Finance, that want to make sure that we have high-performing state-owned enterprises. When they haven't been delivering properly, we want to make sure there's excellence. We want to make sure the New Zealand taxpayer who has capital tied up in those assets, that they are delivering well for those taxpayers.
I would just point out to the member asking the question that assertions and questions are just as inappropriate as they are answers.
Oh, well, if you're going to set that as the standard, Mr. Speaker, I'm sure it will be evenly applied across the House. Why should Kiwis believe privatisation and asset sales will leave them better off, given the last national government's privatisation of energy companies led to higher power prices, bigger profits and less investment in electricity generation?
Look, I think the Leader of the Opposition has gone down the rabbit hole, and actually, I don't know how to be any clearer. Asset sales are off the table for this government.
Supplementary question. Why should New Zealanders believe the answer he's just given? When asked the question of asset sales in the House last year, he accused the person asking it of being a conspiracy theorist, only to admit that the government has actually been considering it.
The government has been looking at the performance and the excellence and the management of our state-owned enterprises to make sure that the public is getting good return on the capital being employed. The comment I made to the Green member was the idea that you would actually run an organisation down before you sell it. That makes no sense.
Question 3.